Reading the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. In this poem, Kipling's basically describing how to be a real man, and although I don't condone everything it says, he still raises some good points. So here goes. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build 'em up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Continuing our spy theme today, I'm going to tell you the story of a computer hacker who made a lot of trouble in the 80s. The reason I would really like people to pay attention to the story is because the hacker in it is a sociopath, and the definition of a sociopath is a person with a personality disorder manifesting itself in extreme antisocial attitudes and behavior and a lack of conscience. That description fits so many people in our present-day society, it's not even funny. The world is full of sociopaths, probably because the moral framework of society is breaking down and people don't know what should be socially acceptable anymore. And the majority thinks that this is normal, but it's not. Because as the definition implies, this leads to a lack of conscience and amorality. Anyway, the story is really interesting and I know you'll enjoy it. This is True Spy Stories by Terry Deary, Armchair Agent. Date, autumn through winter 1989. Place, Hanover, Germany. Carl was my friend, but now Carl is dead. They said he was a spy and that's why he's dead. But it wasn't that simple. I was 14 years old in 1986. Most boys in my class were interested in football. A few were interested in girls. I was only interested in computers. They called me a freak, but I didn't care. I was an only child and a lonely child. But through my computer I met all the friends I wanted. Every night after school I raced through my homework, then sat at my computer screen for 4 hours or more. A small box at the side of the machine was connected to the phone line, and through the phone lines I would exchange messages with the friends at the other side of the world. But Carl was my special computer friend, and now Carl's dead. I first realized that Carl was local when I switched on my computer one evening in the autumn of 1988 and found an electronic message waiting for me. Interested in making money from your computer? Contact Carl. It gave his electronic address. I saw that it was local, and I knew I needed money desperately to keep my computer up to date. I tapped in his address and contacted Carl. At first we exchanged harmless messages, and then one evening Carl's message asked, "Why not call around and see me?" I had contacted hundreds of people over the computer network. I'd never met one face to face. Carl's address was just on the other side of Hanover, the side where the wealthy people lived. It was just 20 minutes on a bus. I switched off my computer early that night and left the house. Carl lived in a flat with security doors at the main entrance. I'd never come across anything like it and pushed nervously at the button marked Carl Koch. "Who's there?" asked a tinny voice from the speaker. Peter Allen," I said. A buzz sounded from the lock on the door and I pushed it open. I took the lift to the 3rd floor and found him waiting at the door. I guessed he was about 25 years old. He was thin and pale like someone who never saw the sun. He wore round spectacles and wire frames, and the eyes behind the glass were never still. We shook hands awkwardly. "I guess you'll want to see my setup," he said. I nodded shyly, and he led me through the living room and into a small room that was lit mainly by the blue-green light from his computer screen. The computer simply amazed me. If I was Aladdin with 3 wishes, I'd have wished for a computer like that. "Show me what you can do," he said. I hadn't realized I was there for some kind of test, but I sat at the keyboard and found some of my favorite network sites in the USA and Britain. He looked faintly disappointed. "Are you into hacking?" "No," I said, a little ashamed that he'd see me as some sort of wimp. That night he showed me how to hack. Really hack. How to get into secret files by discovering their passwords and reading documents that were a mass of words and figures I didn't understand. It took another 3 meetings that autumn before I was good enough to do it without his help. In that time, we became friends. My first real friend, I guess. And now he's dead. After a month, he gave me his computer. The thought of having that wonderful machine on my own desk took my breath away. "I can't afford it," I gasped. "It's a gift," he said. "In future, I want you to work from home and do hacking for me. I'm ready to upgrade to a new computer anyway. You may as well have this old one." "But why? What sort of work?" I asked. "You've seen the way I hack into company computers?" "Yes." "I get information on things like sales figures. If a company does really well, then people who have shares in it can make a fortune. The trick is to know a company is doing well before the rest of the public know. I simply sell that information to my contacts. It's harmless." "It's spying. It's illegal," I said. He looked at me, and then his restless eyes flickered away. "It's just a game," he said. "You can make hundreds of Deutschmarks a month. Why don't you do it and make the money for yourself?" I asked. "Why give it to me?" "Because I haven't time for this spying into companies. I have other things to do with my computer time." "What things?" He chewed on his lip for a while and then said, "Let's see how you get on with this. I'll let you into my little secret another time, okay?" I shrugged. I was too excited at the idea of making a fortune to think about Carl's schemes. I trusted him. He was my friend, but now he's dead. My part of the deal worked perfectly. I hacked and stole and sneaked my way into computers around the world to find the information I needed. I loaded it onto floppy disks, passed it to Carl, and an envelope stuffed with money arrived within a week. I'd never seen so much money. I didn't dare tell my friends what I was doing, and I didn't have anything I wanted to spend the money on. I just pushed it into my dressing table drawer under my clean socks. It was like Carl said, a game. Unreal. Until one day I received a message from Carl. "Come and see me. Make sure you're not followed. If anyone is watching my flat, then turn around and go home." We'd been sending messages through the computers for months. It would be strange to see him face to face again. It was winter now, of course, and snow was drifting down out of a colorless sky as I climbed on the bus. A few people got on the bus at the same stop. More got on and left at various stops along the road. No one got off at the stop nearest Carl's house. Whatever was going on, I was sure I wasn't being followed. A silver Audi car stopped at the end of the road and snapped off its headlights as I stepped off the bus. I guess they could have followed by car if they had been watching my house. I stayed at the stop as if I was waiting for another bus to come along. After a few minutes, the Audi pulled away and drove past me. I was alone in the street outside Carl's flat. Anyone with any sense was indoors and out of the freezing wind. I crossed the road and looked over my shoulder before I pressed the buzzer on the entrance to Carl's block of flats. Anyone could have been watching from any of the darkened windows of the houses opposite. It was a chance I had to take. The door buzzed and I stepped inside. The warmth of the central heating wrapped itself around me, and I took the lift up to the 3rd floor. Carl was waiting by the door. His face was paler than ever, and his expression bleak. Even his restless eyes seemed frozen in some helplessness. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I've been tricked," he said over his shoulder as he led his way into the computer room. He sat on the swivel chair by the keyboard and rocked slowly backwards and forwards. "What happened?" I asked. "I was making a good living from spying on company secrets, the way you are now, but it was too easy," he said, and his voice was dull. "I wasn't greedy. I just wanted a challenge. I wanted to hack into the world's greatest secrets just to prove I could do it, like a mountain climber would want to climb Everest, just to prove themselves." "What sort of secrets?" "Military secrets," he said, and he told me what he'd been doing for the last few months. I found ways into most of the United States military research bases. I've hacked into the latest weapons system secrets, into NASA's space program, into the Central Intelligence Agency's spy network, and into the FBI records. There's hardly a secret in the USA that I couldn't get at sooner or later. And Russia and China? I asked. He turned away from me. No, not them. Suddenly I understood. You've been spying for the Russians, passing your data to their spies. The KGB, he nodded. And now you've been found out? I think so. I never stayed connected to a secret file too long. I didn't want the Americans to be able to trace me. Then I came across a new, huge batch of secrets in a file called Skynet. It would take me a long time to load that file onto my computer, but the KGB ordered me to do it. Even if it meant you getting caught? They said they'd protect me. You think the Americans are onto you now? Then ask the KGB to help, I said. I couldn't see the problem. It seems this Skynet information was rubbish. It was just a collection of old, useless material. It was just cheese in a trap, and I was the mouse. The KGB are furious. The CIA are on their way to get me, they reckon, and Russia doesn't want to get the blame. I'm on my own. That's awful, I cried. I was well paid. While it lasted, he sighed. Now I have to take my punishment. Got a few years in jail, but that's not why I asked you to come around. In the next hour, he showed me how to destroy all the memory on the computer I had back at home. The CIA will want to know my contacts. I've wiped out every trace of you on this computer. You need to do the same at your end, understand? Yes, Carl, thanks. He gave me a weak smile. There's no point in us both being dragged down. Now go. Destroy that information, but make sure no one is following you. I rose to leave. Is there no way to save yourself? I asked. I'm a computer spy, an armchair agent. I'm not one of those spies you read about in books, on the run with a poison capsule under my tongue and a gun in my pocket. I wouldn't know where to start. No, Peter. If you can save yourself, I'll be happy. Good luck. We shook hands one last time, and I let myself out into the winter night. For the next month, my parents were amazed to find me leaving my computer every night to watch the television news. It was January before a serious newsreader announced, German police have uncovered a computer spy ring in Hanover that is alleged to have stolen thousands of secret documents electronically and passed them on to KGB agents in Berlin. The police were taking credit, but everyone knew the American Secret Service were behind the arrests. I followed the case in the newspapers and was relieved to see they released Carl at Easter before he came to trial in May. If he was free to return home, they can't have thought he was such a dangerous criminal after all. It all seemed so hopeful. My spirits raised, and I even tried a little computer hacking just for fun. When the news came through that he had failed to report in to the police, I cheered. He had made a run for it at last. His KGB friends must have finally helped him out, I decided. Then a week later, he was found. What was left of him. The reporter said police were treating it as suicide. His car was found abandoned in a lonely wood. Nearby they saw Carl's charred body. It had been soaked in petrol and set fire. There were murmurs about this being a strange form of suicide. Who would want to die horribly like that? But no one ever mentioned the word murder. I read every newspaper report, word for word, and even used my computer to sift through the details. Look at them for yourself. He died with no shoes on and no shoes in the car. Who would drive 20 miles without shoes? There were scorch marks round the body, but nowhere else. Had he lain perfectly still while he burned? His contacts in the computer spy ring had given all they knew to the police and knew that in return they would go free. So why on earth would Carl want to kill himself? I've thought about it and worried about it for 10 years now. I know that he was murdered. Spying is a dangerous business, and failures often die. I know my friend was murdered. There's just one thing I don't know. Which side killed him? The Americans or the Russians? Somewhere hidden deep in a computer file in Moscow or in Washington, there's the answer. The only way I'll ever find out is if I get into that file and read it. I'm as good at hacking now as Carl ever was. I'm ready to start searching for the truth from the comfort of my armchair in front of this keyboard. I'm ready to become a hacker and a spy. Carl would like that. If I disappear, then end up a blackened corpse, you'll know I failed. but I have to try. After all, Carl was my friend, and now he's dead. Boy, this kid just doesn't learn. But I think we all got some pretty good lessons out of it, so I hope you enjoyed it. Godspeed.